Welcome back, our dear viewers. Now it's time for our daily press review for today, Monday, the 31st of October. And we are joined over here in the studio by our very dear guest, Mr. Ayoub, Mahmoud Ayoub, former Minister Commercial. Good morning, Mr. Ayoub.
Good morning to you and to the viewers.
And we'll start our press review for today from Al Ahram. The quick conclusion of the state plan regarding the protection from the floods. The President assigns the different state institutions and the armed forces to enhance efforts to help those affected by the floods. And President Assisi meets with Prime Minister Sharif Ismail and the Minister of Irrigation and Water Resources, Mohammed Abdel Ati. And presidential spokesman Ayoub says that the President was briefed on procedures taken by the authorities to deal with torrential rains which have hit many governorates and especially in Upper Egypt. And still with the same issue, but from Al Akhbar and from the front page, we do read. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi assigned the government with continuing the floods protection plan and 100,000 boxes of food to the families that were affected by the floods, and dams to make use of the waters of the rain. And the parliament criticizes the performance of the government and a fact-finding committee to visit the worst hit areas. And the same issue, that time from El Masri El-Yom and from the front page. The crisis of the floods on the desk of the President, and a parliamentary trial for the government and the armed forces provide a number of engineering equipment and dispatch 10 emergency teams to areas worst hit by the heavy rains in the Red Sea Governorate. And the army sends 74 heavy equipment to remove debris from the floods in the southern Egyptian governorate of Suheg and provide 100,000 flood and food packages for the victims. Of course, the recent days did witness a very sad incident, which was the floods that did hit many areas in Egypt, the Red Sea and Upper Egypt, and of course many people did suffer because of the repercussions, and many people did lose their lives. So how do you see the reaction of the government, and what measures should be taken in order to deal with such incident? Because of course we are starting the season of the winter.
I will begin with the prompt reaction of NGOs to step in until the government moves. It is 3 days now with the debris and with floods and so on. Rotary Club of Red Sea, El Gona, sent one truck on the first day after this torrential rains. Second day, Rotary Club of Giza North sent another truck with the food, cloth, medicine, most importantly, medicines to Ras Gharib, to the soil they stepped in. At the same time, the army and the government are stepping in, although it took some time until they can understand what the situation is like, and they had to do that as soon as possible. But there is something very important. This is not the first time that we see floods in this part of Egypt.
Indeed.
So we should have been taken
precautionary measures,
precautionary steps before this happened, especially when the meteorological organization or authority has already said 1 week back that they expect some torrential rains in the Upper Egypt.
Yeah, it was actually announced beforehand. Yes. So do you see, Mr. Ayoub, now that the NGOs should be playing a very important role in dealing with such crises? Not only the government, we should walk hand in hand.
Of course. The NGOs, like Rotary and others, are playing an important role in stepping in at times of disaster. That is what we call disaster relief. And they are stepping in because the government, it takes them time. When I say time, it means just a couple of days. But during this couple of days, the lives of people are in danger. So they stepped in. This is one thing. Other thing is that we see that many NGOs are calling us to contributions and donations, and this is the time for them to show how do they act in this case.
Indeed. The real moves should be shown during the time of crises, of course.
Yes.
And back to Al Ahram front page, we read the House of Representatives denounces the statement of Madani. The Parliament condemns the statements of the General Secretary of the Organization of the Islamic Cooperation, and Foreign Minister says we presented a memo officially objecting the organization, and we are communicating with the member states to take the necessary measures against the General Secretary. And still with the same issue, and that time from Al-Akhbar, and we read from page 4. A revolution of anger against Iyad Madani and Shukri says to the Parliament, we have dealt with the situation. And Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri said on Sunday that the General Secretary of the Organization of the Islamic Cooperation, Iyad Madani, had committed a grave mistake when he articulated unacceptable words against Egypt during the recent meeting of the Arab Organization for Education and Culture in Tunisia. The Foreign Minister's statement came during the participation in Sunday's parliamentary session. Shukri added that the Foreign Ministry issued a statement in which it condemned Madani's statements, which harmed a founding state of the OIC. He noted that the ministry took a number of procedures to deal with these insulting statements, saying that these procedures are being taken based on consultations with the OIC member states. Of course, Mr. Ayoub, we have been hearing arguments and talks about the statement of Iyad Madani, the Secretary General of the OIC, regarding Egypt. So what's your take on that?
The unhappy and unwelcome and unacceptable statement by Iyad Madani was sternly responded to by Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri, whether in official statements or in his statements to the media, is strong and to the point, and this person should know it is not acceptable at any way, in any form, either in form or content, to speak in this way about Egypt and its leadership. This is one thing. Other thing is that contacts were made with the OIC countries to take stern measures against this person. I think it is not the first time for him to do such silly announcement. Third, Egypt's stand in this case is very clear. We cannot accept any such remarks by this person or any other person in this context. Minister of Education was there, as far as I remember, in Tunisia, and he responded, although the response of the Minister of Foreign Affairs was a strong one, and it covered the whole issue successfully.
Hopefully we do not see such hard or unwelcome statements by neighboring countries or by other member states of the OIC or any other organizations towards each other. And from Al-Akhbar, page 6, we do read, today the President of Singapore on an official visit to Egypt. And Dalia Khurshid says 16 international firms to enhance investments. And Singapore President Tony Tan arrived in Cairo on Sunday for a 3-day visit, the first in 20 years. During his visit, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is to hold summit talks with Tan. Tan is also expected to meet with Grand Sheikh of Al-Azhar, Sheikh Ahmad al-Taib, and Pope Tawadros, the second Pope of Alexandria, and the Patriarch of St. Mark Holy See. The visit will also witness the signing of a number of agreements in different fields, including vocational education, small and medium-sized enterprises, e-governance, as well as ports and water desalination stations. Singapore President visit to Egypt comes within the framework of celebrating 50 years since the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries. Egypt today is welcoming the visit of the President of Singapore, the first visit after 20 years. And of course, many agreements are expected to be signed between Egypt and Singapore. How do you see the importance of such a visit by the Singaporean President?
It is very important. Why? Singapore, first we have diplomatic relations with Singapore. Egypt is one of the first countries who established diplomatic relations with Singapore. Second, Singapore is a capital exporting country. For us, we need investments. And in this instance, I will say that it is not wise to shoot ourselves in the feet by slashing our commercial representation overseas. This is a time when we expand our commercial relations with these countries. When I say commercial, I mean commercial, economic, financial, and investment relations, especially with countries like Singapore, China, Japan, and what I mean is the Far East countries are capital exporting countries. This is the time. This is number one. Number two, Singapore succeeded in many areas. Now they are coming to, with Dalia Khorshid, they are coming with 3 or 4 agreements to be held. But most important, not just to sign an agreement, but just to implement and follow it up so that we can reach conclusions with a limited framework. Number 4, Egypt has a stake in cementing its economic and commercial relations with the leading country in the world. We have to expand our commercial presence in these countries. Why? Because we need economic assistance, economic cooperation, and investments. Investments will not come from the heaven, but it should have a catalyst. A catalyst in the commercial man on the spot in these countries. Welcome to the President of Singapore to Egypt, and welcome to Singapore's investments in Egypt.
Yes, so hopefully we do see an increase in the level of investments from Singapore and other Asian countries to Egypt and other, of course, countries from around the globe.
It is expected.
Yes, hopefully we do see
Inshallah.
that on the ground. And from Al Ahram front page, we read closing 15 Turkish newspapers on charges of threatening the national security of the country. Turkish police detained the editor-in-chief of the opposition secularist Cumhuriyet newspaper on Monday and said homes of the paper's executives and writers were being searched. Broadcasters CNN Turk and other media reported the news. However, media did not give a reason for the detention of the editor Murat Sabuncu or the searchers, which came as authorities cracked down on anyone suspected of links to the US-based cleric Fathullah Gulen, accused by the government of orchestrating the failed coup in July. What's your take, sir, on that move which did take place in Turkey?
Any person who is saying any other opinion like Fathullah Gulen will be considered conspirating against the republic, which this is not the case. This is number one. Number two, Turkey is not only President Erdogan, but there are many other leaders in the country, whether inside Turkey or outside, who have a voice to be heard. When we are confiscating their points of view and sequestrating the belongings of Cumhuriyet. Cumhuriyet is one of the leading newspapers in
Turkey.
like Zaman, Cumhuriyet, and 2 others are. What is one of the leading newspapers in the country? When you are doing that, trying to stifle any other second opinion, it is not a democratic way of ruling a big country like Turkey.
And finally, we have this piece of news from Al Ahram front page. Trump accuses it of trying to protect the Democratic nominee. And the U.S. Justice Department evades reopening the case of Clinton emails. And the Associated Press says the Justice Department recommended the FBI not to open the Clinton case once again. And Trump says the Democratic nominee promised the Justice Secretary to keep her in her position if she dropped the case against her. To shed more light about the recent developments concerning the U.S. presidential election race, we have the following report. Then we'll be back to comment.
Federal investigators have secured a warrant to examine newly discovered emails related to Hillary Clinton's private server. A source familiar with the matter made the announcement on Sunday as a prominent Democrat accused FBI Director James Comey of breaking the law by trying to influence the elections. The warrant will allow the Federal Bureau of Investigation (FBI) to examine the emails to see if they are relevant to its probe of the private email server used for government work by Clinton, the Democratic presidential nominee, while she was Secretary of State from 2009 to 2013. Comey came under heavy pressure from Democrats on Sunday to quickly provide details of the emails. This, as Clinton allies worried the prolonged controversy could extend beyond the November 8 elections and cast a shadow over a Clinton transition if she wins the White House. Comey's disclosure of the email discovery in a letter to Congress on Friday plunged the final days of the White House race between Clinton and Republican Donald Trump into turmoil. Clinton had opened the recent lead over Trump in national polls. However, it had been narrowing even before the email controversy resurfaced. The unexpected turn in the email controversy shook financial markets' conviction of a Clinton victory in the election, and the US dollar slipped against major currencies in early Asian trading on Monday.
And welcome back, our dear viewers. In a quick comment, Mr. Ayoub, how do you read the presidential election race in the United States as we are just few days ahead of the big day?
The big day on 8th November, clearly Mr. Trump is losing ground. This is the last ditch which he is trying to hold, but clearly he will be evacuated from it. I hope that there will be no more scandals by him against Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, just few days ahead of the big day in the United States, the presidential election race between both Clinton and Trump, of course, is getting very hot and heated. And we will wait and see what will going on. Mr. Ayoub, Mahmoud Ayoub, former Minister Commercial, thank you very much, sir, for being with us, and have a lovely morning.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, sir. And now, our dear viewers, we will have a short break, and after that, we'll be back to resume the segments of the Breakfast Show, so stay tuned.